right, language lovers, get ready, because today we're diving deep into the 5 C's of language learning.
The 5 C's.
Communication, cultures, connections, comparisons, and communities.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a mouthful, but
It is.
you want to really master a new language, like really get the culture. These 5 C's are your roadmap. And while these are part of the Texas education standards,
Right.
they're seriously useful for anyone learning a language,
Absolutely.
anywhere in the world on their language journey. So
It's a really good framework.
it is a good framework.
Yeah.
So let's kick things off with the most obvious one, communication.
Okay.
Seems simple enough,
Yeah.
but there's actually a lot more to it than just, like talking.
There is. We can break communication down into 3 main types. Interpersonal, interpretive, and presentational.
Okay, so
So interpersonal is your classic back and forth dialogue, like ordering a coffee or chatting with a friend.
Okay.
Interpretive communication, that's all about understanding what you hear and read. And then presentational is when you're sharing information either through speaking or writing.
Okay, I've got a story for presentational communication. I once tried to give a presentation in Spanish,
Oh, no.
and let's just say my carefully crafted sentences
Yeah.
went out the window the moment I got nervous.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Stage fright.
big time. Any tips on how to avoid a meltdown like that?
Well, I think for presentational communication, preparation is key.
Yeah.
Break the process down into smaller steps like brainstorming, drafting, and revising.
Okay.
Don't try to do everything at once.
Yeah.
And remember, visuals are your friend.
Okay.
A well-placed image or diagram can make your message much clearer and more engaging.
Good point. Yeah, because it's like they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about those everyday conversations, like the interpersonal kind?
Yeah.
I always get stuck when I don't know a specific word.
Oh, yes. The dreaded vocabulary gap.
Yeah.
But don't let it derail you.
All right. One strategy is to become a master of circumlocution,
Circumlocution.
talking around the word you don't know.
Okay.
Think of it as a verbal puzzle.
Okay.
Can you describe the object or concept using other words? Can you use gestures or examples?
Yeah, but sometimes I feel really awkward doing that.
Sure.
It's like, can you hand me that thing you use to, make the food hot?
Like, I understand it can feel a bit clumsy at first.
Yeah.
But remember, the goal is to communicate,
Right.
even if it's not perfectly eloquent.
Yeah.
And honestly, most people are happy to help you bridge the language gap.
They are. They are. Okay, so another big part of communication is interpretive skills.
Yes.
Understanding what you read and hear.
Exactly.
So how do we get better at that?
Well, one technique that can really boost your comprehension is inferencing.
Inferencing. Sounds kind of like Sherlock Holmes.
It's actually quite similar.
Really?
Inferencing is all about reading between the lines,
Okay.
using context clues and your existing knowledge to figure out the implied meaning.
So it's less about understanding every single word
Exactly.
and more about getting the gist.
Right. Exactly.
Excellent.
And here's where things get really interesting. Recognizing patterns in language, like cognates those words that share a common origin across languages, can actually unlock a deeper understanding of culture and history.
Oh, interesting.
For example, the English word philosophy and the Spanish word filosofia
Okay.
both derive from the ancient Greek word philosophia.
Wow.
This tells us that these cultures share a common intellectual heritage.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
It's like those linguistic connections reveal these hidden pathways between cultures.
Right. They do. They do.
But I have to admit, those false friends,
Yes.
words that look similar but have different meanings,
Yes.
those can be tricky.
They can be tricky.
Yeah.
I hear you.
I'm always second-guessing myself.
I understand.
Yeah.
Those false friends are a constant reminder that even when languages appear similar on the surface, there are subtle nuances that can trip you up.
Right.
That's why paying attention to context and being willing to ask for clarification is so important.
Absolutely. Now, I know we mentioned the Texas education standards earlier.
We did.
How do all these communication strategies connect to the TEKS framework?
Well, one of the TEKS standards for language learning emphasizes engaging in oral and written exchanges for both social and informational purposes.
Okay.
This aligns perfectly with the 3 types of communication we've been discussing.
Yeah.
The framework encourages learners to develop practical communication skills that can be applied in real-world situations, from casual conversations to formal presentations.
It's great to see how those educational standards connect to real-life communication skills.
It is.
It's not just about passing a test.
Yeah.
It's about being able to, navigate the world confidently using your new language.
For sure.
So we've covered a lot of ground with communication.
Yeah, we have.
Ready to move on to our next C?
Let's dive into the fascinating world of cultures.
Ooh, yes.
That's a good one.
I love this one.
I do too.
This is where things get really interesting.
It is. It is. It's where things get really nuanced and where you can start to appreciate the incredible diversity of human experience.
I'm all about nuance, so how do we even, begin to grasp what culture really means?
Right.
It seems like such a broad concept.
It is broad, but we can break it down into two main elements.
Okay.
Practices and products.
Okay.
Practices are what people do. They're customs, traditions, social behaviors.
Okay.
Products are what people create.
Perfect.
They're art, music, literature, even their technology and systems of government.
Okay, that helps. So practices are like the actions and products are the tangible expressions of a culture's values and beliefs.
Right. Think of it like this.
Right.
The practice of bowing in Japan, that's a visible behavior.
Right.
But it reflects these deeper cultural values
Okay.
of respect and hierarchy. Or consider the intricate designs of Islamic architecture.
Okay.
Those products aren't just aesthetically pleasing.
Right.
They reflect a culture's deep connection to geometry, mathematics, and spiritual beliefs.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like every cultural element has a story to tell,
Mm-hmm.
a deeper meaning waiting to be discovered.
Does.
What are some other examples of cultural practices that
Okay.
might surprise our listeners?
Well, how people perceive personal space is a fascinating one.
Okay.
In some cultures, standing close together is a sign of warmth and connection,
Yeah.
while in others it can feel intrusive or even disrespectful.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Or consider the practice of eating with your hands.
Okay.
In some cultures, it's the norm,
Yeah,
and even considered more polite than using utensils.
that's so true. I remember traveling in India, and I felt so awkward at first trying to eat curry with my fingers.
Yeah.
But then I realized it was actually a more intimate and sensory way to experience the food.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of exploring different cultures. It challenges our assumptions and opens us up to new ways of seeing the world.
It does. Now, what about cultural products?
Okay.
What are some examples that really highlight the diversity of human creativity?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I'm thinking about things like traditional clothing,
Okay.
the vibrant colors of a Mexican huipil, or the elegant drape of a Japanese kimono.
Beautiful.
Each garment tells a story about the culture's history, beliefs, and aesthetic values.
Yes, they do.
And music.
Yes.
Music is another powerful example.
Absolutely.
From the rhythmic beats of West African drumming to the haunting melodies of Irish folk music. Each culture has its own unique soundscape
Right.
that reflects its history and emotions.
Yes, it does. It's amazing how music can transcend language barriers
Yeah,
and create such a powerful connection between people.
it really is. I remember once I was at a festival in Brazil, and even though I didn't understand the lyrics of the songs, I was completely swept up in the energy and rhythm of the music.
Yes, you can feel it. It's a reminder that culture is about so much more than just words.
Right.
It's about shared experiences, emotions, and expressions of identity.
And here's a thought-provoking question for our listener.
Okay.
What cultural practices or products from your own heritage do you find most fascinating or meaningful?
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's so easy to take our own culture for granted.
It is.
But when we stop and really think about the practices and products that shape our lives, it can be incredibly revealing.
It can.
Okay, now ready to move on to our next C.
Connections.
This one is all about making those connections.
Yes. This is where language learning becomes truly transformative.
Ooh, I like it.
We're not just learning words and grammar.
Right.
We're opening up a whole new world of knowledge and understanding.
All right, so how does language learning help us make those connections?
Okay.
Give us the inside scoop.
Well, for starters, using your target language to explore other subjects is incredibly powerful.
It's amazing how language learning can be this incredible springboard into other fields.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered communication, we've explored cultures, and we've talked about making connections. What's next on our 5Cs journey?
Next up is comparisons. This is where we start to see those aha moments, those flashes of insight that come from recognizing patterns and contrast between languages and cultures.
Comparisons. I like it. It's like holding up two different pieces of fabric to the light and noticing the subtle differences in the weave. You start to see the details you might have missed before.
That's a great analogy. When we compare languages, we're looking at differences in grammar, vocabulary, and even how ideas are structured. For instance, some languages are very direct, while others are more nuanced and indirect in their communication style. Those differences can reveal a lot about a culture's values and how they approach social interaction.
So by comparing languages, we're not just learning about grammar rules, we're getting insights into how different cultures think and communicate.
Precisely. And those insights can help us become more effective communicators, both in the target language and in our own chapters. For instance, if you're learning a language that's known for its elaborate politeness structures, it might make you more aware of the subtle ways we use language to convey respect and build relationships in your own culture.
That's fascinating. It's like learning another language gives you a new lens through which to view your own intents. Now, what about cultural comparisons? What kind of insights can we gain from comparing different cultures?
Cultural comparisons can be incredibly illuminating, especially when we look at things like social norms, values, and belief systems. For example, comparing how different cultures approach concepts like time, family, or success can reveal a lot about their priorities and worldviews.
I've always been intrigued by how different cultures view time. In some cultures, being on time is absolutely crucial, while in others it's more fluid and flexible. Those different perceptions of time can really impact how people approach work social interactions, and even their overall sense of well-being.
That's a great example, and it highlights how cultural comparisons can help us develop a deeper understanding of our own cultural biases and assumptions. We start to see that there's no one right way to do things, just different approaches shaped by unique cultural contexts.
It's like those cultural comparisons help us develop a more nuanced and empathetic view of the world, recognizing that diversity is a strength, not a barrier.
Exactly. And here's another layer to consider: comparing proverbs and idioms across cultures can offer a fascinating glimpse into shared values or divergent worldviews. For instance, the English proverb, "the squeaky wheel gets the grease," emphasizes individual assertiveness, while the Japanese proverb, "the nail that sticks out gets hammered down," reflects a cultural value of conformity and harmony.
Those contrasting proverbs really highlight the power of language to reflect cultural values, don't they? It's like those pithy sayings encapsulate a whole worldview in just a few words.
They do. And by comparing those sayings, we can start to see the underlying patterns of thought and behavior that shape different cultures. It's a reminder that language is more than just a tool for communication. It's a window into the human mind and the diverse ways we make sense of the world.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground with comparisons. Ready to wrap things up with our final C.
Let's talk about communities, the heart and soul of language learning. It's where we put all those skills and insights into practice, connecting with real people and experiencing the language and culture firsthand.
Communities. It's all about taking that leap from the textbook to the real world, right?
Exactly. Engaging with communities is about using your language skills for real-world purposes,
Yeah.
whether it's having a conversation with a native speaker, attending a cultural event, or even just reading a local newspaper in the target language. It's about immersing yourself in the culture and experiencing it through all your senses.
I love that idea of immersing yourself in the culture. It's like all those abstract concepts we've been talking about suddenly come to life when you're actually experiencing them in a real-world context.
Yeah.
It's one thing to read about a cultural tradition, but it's another thing entirely to participate in it, to feel the energy and emotions firsthand.
It's true. And those real-world experiences make the learning process so much richer and more meaningful. Think about attending a local festival, trying traditional cuisine, or even just striking up a conversation with someone at a market. These interactions, even if they're brief or imperfect, help you develop a deeper understanding of the culture and solidify your language skills.
And those interactions can lead to some pretty amazing connections too, right? I remember when I was studying Italian, I joined a local conversation group. I was so nervous at first, but I ended up meeting some wonderful people who shared my passion for the language and culture. We'd go out for coffee, practice our Italian, and even cook traditional Italian dishes together. It was an incredible way to build friendships and immerse myself in the culture.
That's a perfect example of how engaging with communities can transform your language learning journey. It becomes less about studying a subject and more about connecting with people and building meaningful relationships. And those relationships can open doors to a whole new world of experiences and understanding.
It's like those communities become your extended family, your support system, as you navigate the challenges and triumphs of language learning. They provide a sense of belonging and encourage you to keep pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone.
Absolutely. And remember, communities aren't just limited to physical locations. The internet has opened up a world of possibilities for connecting with people who share your interests. Online forums, language exchange apps, social media groups dedicated to language learning. These are all fantastic resources for finding your tribe and practicing your skills in a supportive environment.
So even if you don't live in a place with a large community of speakers of your target language, you can still find those connections and build those relationships online. It's like the world has become a much smaller place thanks to the internet.
It has, and that's incredibly empowering for language learners. No matter where you are in the world, you can find resources, connect with people, and continue to deepen your understanding of the language and culture you're passionate about.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the 5 Cs, I want to leave our listener with this thought. Language learning is so much more than just memorizing vocabulary and grammar rules. It's a journey of discovery, a way to connect with other cultures, expand your worldview, and ultimately enrich your life in countless ways.
It's about embracing the beauty of human diversity, one conversation, one connection, one aha moment at a time.
Beautifully said. So to our amazing listener, thank you for joining us on this exploration of the 5 Cs. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and are feeling inspired to take your language learning to the next level. Remember, the world is waiting to be discovered one word, one phrase, one cultural experience at a time. Happy learning.